What's up, everybody? This is Dark Macek with Brutally Delicious, coming at you with a review of ORYAD's brand new album, Sacred and Profane. So this is their debut, so obviously I hadn't heard anything before. Currently, the band has only 2 members, but it was a quartet at the time of recording. The remaining members are the vocalist/keyboardist and the drummer, which probably makes a lot of sense once you listen to the music and hear how it's mixed and what's taking the forefront. So, I previously used the term symphonic metal, but it's more like metal that is symphonic than it is like other bands that we call symphonic metal. The closest hit I could think of was Xandria, but they're still stylistically fairly different. There's just a very similar vocal quality. A lot of other symphonic bands, I think, really overdo the keyboard parts. It's almost like, hey, we want you to know that we have a keyboard player. We're not one of those dumb 4-pieces. This band, by comparison, seems a little more secure in the fact that they have a keyboardist. The guitar is a bit heavier. I don't mean more present in the mix. I mean heavier than something like Xandria. The drum patterns are also atypical. I don't think I heard a single double bass beat on the entire album. I might have to re-listen, but definitely none of them jumped out at me. So to sum it up, Xandria-like vocals, keyboard present but not keyboard heavy, subtle drums that serve the songs, guitar-heavy symphonic metal. There's got to be some kind of new wave of British heavy metal style abbreviation for this. Let's start talking about the music. So there's an intro that is not instrumental, actually. There are vocals going. Normally when you have one of those 1.5-minute long intros, it's synths and trying to set a mood. This one actually has singing. It absolutely sets a mood, and I think it did a great job with that. It reminded me, even though the instrumentation is very different, of Winter Suns When Time Fades Away. Moving on, right after that, the song Blood. This is a really good second song. Tell me if I'm crazy here. I always think second songs of a live set or of an album always have a feel. Usually the first one has to hit you right in the gut, but the second one follows up nicely. It's often a bit slower. I'm thinking like Metal Gods by Judas Priest. You can open an album with that, but it is the perfect second song, and yes, I'm referring to the original track listing, not the American. You know, the Four Horsemen, same deal. For anyone who's ever seen Seinfeld and knows the Newman piece about how Tuesday has no feel, I'm like laughing at that in the background. But for real, good second song feel. It has both blast beats and a piano outro. I'm not sure I've heard a song that has those two together, but then again, I don't listen to stuff like Cradle of Filth. Moving on, Lilith. This is a rare case of a slow and meaningful plotting song. It had the feel of like a death march. Very different genre and different feel there, but I was reminded of To the End of Our Days by Ailstorm. There's a really big focus on mood here instead of just let's be heavy and impress people with how brutal we are. This kind of song is usually reserved for outros or solo albums by the singer. It's a total sleeper hit, not something you could release as a single, but definitely one of the best songs on the album. Again, different style, but just with that approach, I was thinking of like Five Magics by Megadeth, which is very beloved by fans, but is not something you could have released on rock radio. The song Eve. Really great vocal melodies here and a great performance. I'm not talking about like range masturbation or showing off how technically impressive the vocals are. I just mean that she's emoting really well here. She's making you feel something. It's totally haunting, but without being campy. I've consistently said for years now that Black Sabbath is one of the only metal bands that makes you feel fear. Everything in the 80s made you feel angry. That was the thrash scene or excitement with hair metal, but very few made you feel fear. It's basically Black Sabbath and just that one song, Fear of the Dark by Iron Maiden. These people just entered contention. Wayfaring Stranger. This is something of a standard. I know Johnny Cash has done it, but I don't think he wrote it. The band completely made it their own to the point where I didn't notice on the first listen that it wasn't their original song. It just fits in so well with everything else. Stylistically, it's another very good slow burn, like I was talking about with Lilith earlier. The way they covered this was tremendous. I think that this could have been used in the background of a depressing episode of Game of Thrones. Just make a montage of like everybody's dreams not coming true, Sansa realizing she's not going to marry the king, and while the electric guitar would be anachronistic, everything else here would fit perfectly. Last but not least, the last proper song on the album, Slice of Time. It's 6 minutes, maybe 7 minutes long. It definitely takes you on a journey and has one of the most perfect climaxes I've ever heard. The ending was just very cathartic, a very nice wrap-up of the entire album. In terms of how it made me feel, and also being a last real song, but also with an outro, I was reminded of Nature's Revenge by Northtail. Different styles, but they made you feel the same way. Kind of funny. So I'm definitely impressed with this band and their focus on mood and atmosphere. They're still very present songs. This is not ambient music. But like I said earlier, it's rare that a metal band makes you feel something other than anger or excitement or joy. This one's much more subtle, much more haunting. I don't really have another artist to compare them to in terms of how they make you feel, and that's tremendous. They've stumbled on something new. Rock on, dudes. Looking forward to the second album.